Fuck them Cowboys! Yeah! Never lose sight of the magic of this football team. Yeah! Here we go!
I'm all in.
Cowboys fans, it's your host Slater here. If you bleed silver and blue and you want honest talk, no filters, you're in the right place. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and enjoy the video. And rolling here, obviously, right? Donovan Ezeiruaku, the information comes out that he's getting surgery from what was it?
It's a hip surgery.
Yeah, hip surgery to repair a labrum tear from 5 weeks ago, and could be out until the start of training camp, according to Todd Archer. Any concern there? You feel, is there any concern there? Was it, maybe an off-season workout, just kind of getting something repaired?
Concerning, yeah, it's a little concerning, just because he's a young guy, got some investment in him, have high expectations for him. He played pretty well as a rookie last year. Glad that he's going to be, it sounds like he's going to be, I'm sure he will. He'll be available for, just before the season and training camp and everything. But any injury that requires a surgery most of the time is not a good thing. So I hope that it is something minor and doesn't impact him. Recently it was stated that he's going to be playing one of the stand-up linebackers in that 3-4 defense that's coming our way with Christian Parker alongside the rest of the guys. So I hope that this is not something that ends up hindering him or takes him out of the game into the next season down the road. He gets the surgery, he gets it fixed, and after a week or two, it's re-aggravated. I just hope it doesn't end up being one of those lingering things. We've had defensive ends who've, had lingering foot problems that takes them out of games 6 or 7 a year. And for his development and his career, I would just hate to see something like that happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially with, Christian Parker and, Brian Schottenheimer coming out and saying that, he's going to be transitioning to an outside linebacker, which, really in a 3-4 scheme, an outside linebacker really becomes more of like an extra defensive end edge rusher. They talked about Liufau being, an outside linebacker too. And obviously those two guys are in two different worlds when it comes to the skill that they bring to the team. But, when it comes to, being for the defensive side of the ball, this offseason is really crucial to really be inside the film room, be inside, these team meetings and really be a part of these walkthroughs and be a part of these mini camps to where you get comfortable with this scheme, because Christian Parker, I assume, is going to turn it up by the time we get to, OTAs, training camp, preseason, and of course the regular season. So, I'm hoping, like the reports say, that he is healthy by the time we get to training camp at the latest.
Yeah, 100%. I'm trying to look it up right now to see what was the injury.
It was a repair a labrum tear from 5 weeks ago, is what it says. And the interesting thing is let's say this injury, and maybe it's, as you look it up, is not a big deal, but maybe if it ends up being a bigger deal than what you thought, and you don't go get nobody like David Bailey or anything like that in the draft, you may have to bring a Jadeveon Clowney back. I've heard some, not to get too off track here, but some rumors about Jadeveon Clowney where it's like Stephen Jones was really big on him and everything like that. But since Christian Parker has entered the building, it seems like things have changed maybe in that mentality, or maybe they just haven't talked about it as much because they haven't hit the free agency. Maybe they're targeting some, higher end defensive ends, rather than, a Clowney. But at the same time, I mean, Clowney played the best game he ever played probably in his whole entire career for the past, 6 years, that last game against the Giants. So
no, 100%. Just to get a little medical MD here, hip labrum surgery is a minimally invasive outpatient procedure that repairs torn cartilage in the hip socket using small incisions, a camera, and specialized instruments. So this is actually going to be right at the hip where the socket is, where your leg moves in there. There's a ligament right there that sits on top of it, and that's where this tear is. So it typically takes 3 to 6 months for full recovery, with a 2 to 6 week crutch use. So he'll be on crutches for a little while. Physical therapy is required. You got to be sedentary for a good amount of time, and it may take 3 to 6 months after the surgery before he can do any athletic or sportsman's activities such as required. It does initially limitate your hip rotation, heavy lifting, and driving. So that's kind of what that entails. And, these athletes, and especially the Dallas Cowboys, have one of the best medical staffs on the planet, if not the best for sports, that is.
Yeah.
I'm sure that this will all get taken care of, but just to make comment on where that surgery is taking place, that is a very difficult, high use, high impact spot. That's right there at the top of your leg where your bone meets your hip. And there's not much you can do on a football field if you don't have that 100%. It's going to make an impact on what you can do. So again, he's young. I'm sure they got it under control. I would just hate to see this develop into something that becomes a long-term problem.
Yeah, exactly. Especially for a guy that, we have really high hopes for. It's coming off of, he ended the season really well. And I think, with the addition of Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, and Osa keep playing the way he's playing, he's going to get a lot of looks to get some one-on-one matchups this year compared to maybe what we started with him week 1 against Philly last year, where he was kind of, our second best talent on the defensive line, maybe behind Osa, and really can only consider Osa the best because he got paid like he was the best on our defensive line. So yeah, a lot of concerning things, especially if you're really trying to develop in this new system. It's just a bad timing for something like this to happen potentially.
Yeah, 100%. And when I first heard what Christian Parker was going to try to do, I got excited because I'm looking at our defensive roster and I'm visually imagining, having our defensive tackles lined up and then having 2 really good linebackers, Overshown and whoever ended up taking that spot, and then Liufau and Ezeiruaku on the outside standing up and just launching after these offenses. I can see it in my head and I can see it working. So, I'm sure surgeries like this happen on every team all around the league every year, but this is the Cowboys. So of course ours is going to make headline news, but I really liked Ezeiruaku. I talked a lot about him last season, as did you. He was one of our favorites. We watched him develop and grow, and I just really don't want this to turn out to be a problem for him. So good luck, Donovan. Hopefully it's all knocked out and nipped up.
And then one last thing I'm going to add. It's not about Donovan Ezeiruaku, but you brought it up, and then I totally didn't set this up or anything. But Liufau, how do you feel about him being moved to outside linebacker?
I love it.
I love it too. Okay,
I think that's I think that's what he is. He's a football player. Yeah. He's just a guy that you point him in a direction and you hit send, and he goes full tilt, and he's a hitter. I think that energizes him. I think the more he makes contact in the game and the more impact he makes on the game, the better he plays, right? And anytime he gets on the field and he gets an opportunity, man, he lights people up. And that's what I want to see. I want to see our guys just rocking dudes in the head, I want him to get after these guys. So that's what he does. That's what he did in college. And I know at points last year, me and you both questioned why he's not more in the rotation with his skill set. Yeah, he needs to work on development, of course, and he doesn't identify everything like he's supposed to, but that's because he doesn't get enough exposure. You can't get better on the sideline. And I think he's very talented. He's really quick. He's fast, and he likes to hit, and that's what you need in a linebacker.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing for Liufau is I think this is a great thing because, one, like you said, he's a football player. I think the more you get him to roll off his instincts instead of, trying to be scheme perfect, the better football player you're going to get out of him. Mm-hmm. And I think with him being an outside linebacker, you're going to get a lot more pass rushing attempts, pass rushing ability. Like, you're going to develop that, right? And with his speed, his size, he's somebody that could come right off the edge like a safety blitz. That's what I kind of see here, right? Instead of bringing a safety down, drop him in the box, you use Liufau with his speed, his skill, and his size to get under these guys, to get over these guys, and go, like you said, knock some heads off, at the quarterback or maybe even at the option, right? That's what I think about too, right? Let's say we're playing against a Lamar Jackson, a Jalen Hurts, or anything like that. Jalen Hurts pulls the ball. Liufau has enough speed and ability with his inside linebacker skills to break down and then go pursue, right? Instead of in the past where it's been like, right here real quick, Micah Parsons, right? Great talent, football player, right? In those breed options, he struggled because he's crashing downhill so fast because he's a bigger dude, a bigger body. And so that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, I agree. You're going to have a defensive tackle group out there on the field for the Cowboys on defense. It's going to cause enough problems that at least one or two times they're going to have to be double teamed.
Yeah.
Right. So what better thing to do than to send, crash a whole strong side, weak side of the defense with the two linebackers and run some twists and challenge those offensive linemen in those tense moments to, grab a play, and that's what I see happening because, we've got Kenny Clark, Osa Digizua, Quinnen Williams, and those guys are going to make a mess. It's hard to handle them in the middle. And then you get guys like, Liufau and Ezeiruaku are fast. They're quick. They have good hands. And you confuse those linemen under pressure, and those guys can rip through there, So that's what gets me excited, and that's what I see happening. Liufau was one of my favorite picks when they picked him up. I'm a linebacker guy, so I'm glad to see that he's going to get a chance, and it makes me feel good that the defensive staff so far sees what I saw, and they seem to agree with it. So,
yeah, and I'm when I did my research about this and all that, Patrick Walker, right? Shout out to him for his article here. With our new coach who's also stepping in there, right, Uzo. They say that they're going to try to compare Liufau to kind of similar to Mikael Williams at Georgia, who was the 11th round pick this past year. So I may have to go watch some film on that and see maybe what the idea is or maybe what we're looking at when it comes to what Liufau's role could be in this new defense of Christian